In this video lesson, we will look at the different ways to go about funding and monetizing music projects in today's industry. We are going to look at traditional business models briefly to overview how they fund and monetize for an artist, and then we will dig into the newer business models used in today's music industry in another video lesson. Let's briefly chat about traditional methods of funding music projects. The first source of funds is the traditional loan from a record label. The traditional loan funds the project and provides specific monies for the artist's creation of the project. This money all comes from a large company that is large enough to fund entertainment projects, risking hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars on a single project. With a traditional loan, the artist gets a recording fund, and if they are a pop artist, they get a recording fund and an artist advance. A recording fund is the recording budget. It is for the recorded, studio time, songwriting, musicians, and engineers. The band or the band's manager will typically manage the fund to make sure the project is completed for an artist that is not, too big, just medium size. A traditional recording fund is a fixed amount of money that is predetermined by the label. It's typically a take it or leave it type of deal. We will look at what those typical numbers are in just a moment. The advance is spending money for the artist. The advance is typically given to a big pop artist because the projects are huge. Both the fund and the advance is a loan on the artist's royalties, so it is their money. In fact, they do not have to pay any of this money back if the contract is terminated. They will, however, have to pay any taxes on the loan that they receive. So both the fund and the advance are loans that are 100% recoupable when the music starts selling. So let's look at how much money is given to artists. For the recording fund here, a new artist signed to an indie label will get between $25,000 to $100,000 typically. A new artist signed to a major gets between $100,000 and $250,000. A mid-level artist signed to a major gets between $300,000 and $750,000, while a superstar gets $1 million to usually $5 million. This recording fund will be spent and many times when an artist are working with large labels. They are pushed to spend it all on the project. They will create songs and the songs will need to be redone. They might even have to fly to different songwriters, producers, or studios to keep creating music until it suits the major label. If there is any money left over, then it is considered an advance. However, if the fund is spent and they have not completed the project, the artist has to submit a proposal to keep it going, and then the label decides if they want to terminate the contract or provide more money for the fund. So again, the signing advance and the recording budget are kept separate for pop artists. This is because the artists are considered part of the project, so they don't have to control, they don't have control over the project. And the production budgets are huge and have to be managed by a professional accountant in a major label scenario. Securitization is a loan on catalog royalties. This type of funding for an artist began in 1997 by a rock and roll investment banker named David Pullman. This method of funding only takes place with superstar artists with a large catalog like David Bowie. This is Bowie when he performed as Ziggy Stardust back in the 1970s. David Bowie was the first artist to use securitization. Sometimes you will hear this type of funding called royalty-backed securitization, royalty securitization, or celebrity bonds. Securitization is actually a bond. The original deal was that Pullman created bonds on 25 David Bowie albums. The bonds are asset-backed securities of current and future revenue on his catalog. The bonds were sold to Prudential Insurance Company of America, and Bowie was able to use the money that he got to buy back some of his older songs from EMI. With this type of deal, you have to forfeit your royalties for a period of time, and in Bowie's case, it was a 10-year forfeit on his royalties for that money up front. If you have the catalog to do this type of funding, it's good because you retain your copyright. And the costs, the costs are actually lower. Usually, I think it was like around 7%, something like that. The risk here is the possible sale of your catalog. So you do have those admin costs. So that is securitization. So with traditional business models, the label invests in the creation of an album and touring. They promote on radio, they do traditional marketing and publicity. They provide free goods to retailers and the media. And they make their money from the sale of albums, tours, and merchandising. That's the basic traditional business model by a major record company. So let's go into the fun stuff now. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you into the new business models, and then in an upcoming lesson, we will get more specific into it. New business models. The reason that the internet and new media is the focus in distribution and marketing today is simple. Success by the indie artist. New distribution in any industry is always led by the underdog. Once a new distribution model is proven by the small guys, the big companies use the new and innovative model, and usually they come up with more cost-effective strategies. Now, there is one underdog that brought the digital distribution model to the music industry. I bet you can guess who it is. Yep, Napster. Napster was started by Sean Fanning. It was a peer-to-peer file-sharing website for distributing music. It never crashed during its time of fame. It started out as a bootleg and old music file sharing service. It was supposed to be for those that wanted old music or bootlegged music that they could not find. And the years were 1999 to 2001 that this was on. It was Sean Fanning, his uncle John Fanning, and his friend Sean Parker, which you probably saw on The Social Network. He's now involved with Spotify and Facebook and everything else. There was one album in particular that made it big on Napster and in effect made the artist take off. Radiohead's album Kid A went platinum its first week in 2000. There was no official single or music video released. It was the first Radiohead release to debut at number 1 in the United States. And 3 months before the release of the album, it was leaked onto Napster. It got downloaded millions of times on Napster that first year, and it was an unexpected success. As a new distribution channel, Napster was also a promotional vehicle. Napster had many supporters. Chuck D from Public Enemy. The band Dispatch attributed all of their success to Napster. They promoted Napster on their tour, and Courtney Love was a supporter as well. Make sure you read the article called Courtney Love Does the Math. It's a great article by Courtney. Next up in this lesson, I want you to watch the MTV Awards show clip about Napster, and then the debate between Lars Ulrich of Metallica and Chuck D of Public Enemy. If you don't know the backstory, Metallica is known for suing their fans that downloaded their music from Napster. Now, Chuck D had a very different perspective from the traditional music business people of the day. The points that they make are still relevant today, and you can even see that Chuck D pointed out some things about business models that came true. We will discuss some of these points in class, so be prepared.